Hey guys, listen to my new LMS theme for Gordy vs. Rocks.
Some smells good in there.
Asym games. Probably one of the most polarizing genres of games on Roblox. You either love Asym games with all of your heart or want them eradicated off the platform. There's been a recent surge of Asym games on Roblox, and they have pretty consistently been pretty bad. I like to take a look at the reasons why these games are bad, however, since I haven't seen a lot of people really analyze the genre as a whole. Let's take a look at this genre and see what we can learn on what makes a good and bad Asym game and how the genre could improve. Wait, is that... Ew, Pappo, you get out of here. Rah, rah, rah. So, what exactly is an Asym? An Asym is a game with two or more asymmetrical teams that both work against each other to complete different goals. Dead by Daylight is the biggest example of an Asym, and it's the blueprint for most modern asymmetrical games. A lot of Asym games on Roblox take a very similar approach. Most Asym games feature one killer who wins by killing every other player, and usually around 8 survivors that need to avoid the killer and sometimes complete tasks. These tasks can range from little puzzles to finding objects, and usually decrease the timer or allow you to leave once they're all complete. There are two different genres of Roblox Asym games: timer-based and task-based. Timer-based Asyms require the survivor to survive until the timer hits 0 in order to win, sometimes having optional tasks that decrease the timer or reward bonus points. Task-based Asym games require survivors to complete all the tasks to be able to end the round. There are also a few games that use both these, but those games are pretty uncommon and they kind of suck. Most modern Asyms tend to have a class system where you can choose between different survivor and killer types with different playstyles and movesets. The killers generally have a few types of playstyles, which I will now go through because this is something a lot of Asyms struggle with. A zoner is a killer who uses projectiles to get survivors to move to where they want them to. Generally, they also have AoE attacks in order to deal with groups. The best counter for these killers is usually to trick them into firing their projectile in their direction, and then moving out of the way. Rushdown killers excel at chasing down single targets and have a lot of burst mobility options. They generally have attacks they can use to quickly end chases to retarget another player, or quickly restore stamina. Chasers are mostly focused on keeping up one chase and tiring out a survivor. Trappers are killers focused on setting up traps across the map that damage or apply effects to survivors. They generally also have ways to wall survivors into specific areas in order to waste their stamina. Snowballers are by far the hardest killer type to get right, since it's super easy to make them too OP or too weak. They generally involve getting more powerful over time by setting up stations or by other methods. Stealth killers are interesting because they basically can't exist in timer-based Asyms due to needing to slowly stalk the survivors, which wastes a lot of time. You won't see many of these in Asym games due to a majority being timer-based. These aren't the only classes a killer can use, but they're the most common you can find. As far as I know, the entire Asym genre started with Dead by Daylight. There's probably some sort of juggernaut game mode from early boomer shooters here, but I don't know. Dead by Daylight was definitely a pretty decent start to the genre, but still has a lot of fundamental flaws with its gameplay. Dead by Daylight's main issue was its heavy reliance on completing tasks, as that could easily get messy when the player was down, as the time you spend in the match increases exponentially the more people die. It encourages players to all just rush generators and not engage with the killer, which would be the most fun part of the game. Instead, the players are just sitting there and doing generators. What does this remind me of? Hook states are also a very annoying mechanic, as it essentially adds multiple needless layers of complexity to what could have easily just been a basic health system. Sure, having multiple lives is nice in theory and forces the survivors to work as a team, but it just ends up playing out as health with extra steps combined with a timeout corner. It's very common for the killer to just camp the hooks to get a free hit. The dev's response being to add anti-camping feature that puts the killer in a lose-lose situation, being damned if they stay near the hooked survivor for too long, and being damned if they let their previous be unhooked for free. This makes the game overall slower, which is good if you're playing as a stealth or a trapper killer, but for everyone else, it's just a huge slog. I'm not really going to go into any more depth on Dead by Daylight here because, most of the modern Asym genre is pretty far separated, mechanics-wise. Flee the Facility was the first attempt at taking the Asym genre to Roblox, and honestly, it did a pretty decent job. It stripped down a lot of the mechanics from Dead by Daylight, and honestly made the game much more accessible. The game is slightly better through doing less, which you kinda have to respect. Overall, however, it didn't have much influence on the current state of Asym games. There is a much larger game to blame here. I'm not transitioning yet. I'm just laughing at the creation of hatred with lyrics. Even with all of the drama, it's undeniable that Forsaken is a pioneer of the asymmetrical genre. Its class system, core loop, and lore are basically the base of for every game released after it. The main reason Forsaken was so good was due to the stamina management. The killer and survivor both had to pay attention to stamina and make sure they had enough to catch up or get away. It made the playing field way more even to both and made chases more based on skill. The standardization of stamina also helps, since each killer and survivor has a very similar amount of stamina, which allows you to easily get better at both. Stamina also adds on a mind game aspect, since both sides will be constantly trying to get the other to spend more stamina. The survivor and killer roles were also pretty balanced, since each had a distinct playstyle that held up against others. Yes, I'm including survivalists in this. Having survivalists is essential to allow people who don't want to directly help the team at all times to still enjoy the game. Also, I should mention that having unique survivor playstyles is like revolutionary somehow. Dead by Daylight just let you make some builds that could technically create a playstyle, but playstyles were mostly reserved for the killers themselves. Forsaken iterated on this with survivor classes, which made engaging with the killer much more interesting. Forsaken's biggest change from Dead by Daylight that made Forsaken work better was changing the game to be timer-based instead of task-based. It cut out the middleman of generators and forced you to engage with objectively the most fun part of the game: chases. Oh, what's that I hear on my phone? Who's calling me at this time of gay?
Carson, I'm going to buttfuck you. You didn't talk about the main reason the game is so popular. This line is written by Carson, by the way.
I don't mind if I do.
Fuck you, I'm narrating this part. The best part about Forsaken in my mind was your effectiveness as a survivor isn't tied to your team compared to how Dead by Daylight's pacing is solely centered on completing gens. Stamina management puts you on a near one-to-one playing field with the killer. You just had to learn how to spend and maintain your stamina effectively while mixed with your character's other key abilities. And that's usually enough for you to gain a win for yourself once the timer was up. However, things just become more advanced if you want to ensure your teammates also survive. You can choose to play supports or sentinels who are more orientated to side by a team, but Forsaken lets you decide if you want to cooperate, allowing for a freedom of casual play. And more importantly, your chances of losing don't go down because another person is taken out. You could still be the last man standing and still win it for everyone.
Anyways. Why am I referring to Forsaken in past tense? Well, after the devs added Noli, the game has had a constant downward spiral. Every killer and survivor has been consistently worse. The breaking point being Nosferatu, the laziest and most unbalanced killer to ever be added to a game. What archetype even is he? I don't really know much about the game in its current state, as Soldier of Love has taken 25% of my memories of the game, so I can't comment much on it. But I'm fairly certain the current dev team has no idea what they're doing. Yeah, the placement of games in this video is completely random and arbitrary. Don't expect any form of order. Outcome Memories is probably the second most influential Asym, and likely the main cause of the current wave of new Asym due to kids just pointing at Outcome Memories and going, what if... The majority of the roster is made up of stunners, which makes sense, I guess, because Sonic characters tend to fight a lot. This becomes an issue when you realize that the killer has 0 stun immunity after being hit, and stuns can be stacked to extend its duration. This means most of your time isn't spent chasing survivors, rather juking them until they all enter cooldown, so you can finally then do some damage. Sometimes abilities like Drop Dash are so oppressive the amount of maneuvering you have to do might as well be considered a stun itself. So how does the game make up for this? Simple. 2011X can essentially 2 to 3 tap every survivor in the game, so good luck trying to play without your team, because the game is entirely committed to stuns. The whole experience is a frustrating mess of repeatedly getting stunned and dying the moment you aren't backshotting the killer, and the new killers are just as overtuned. All of these issues combine together to make the game extremely unfun for anyone playing, which would be okay if this wasn't also what most Asym games nowadays are based on. Really, the main good part about Outcome Memories is the OST, which has some good remix of Sonic songs, and it's cancelled, fuck. Break in and steal things. Looking at the game design of Break In and Steal Things has made me want to tear my eyes out. The main task is super easy to fuck over the survivors with, since the items the survivors have to steal could just, be camped. The game also has friendly fire for no reason. There's the shotgun item that completely breaks the balance. The devs deflect any sort of criticism by saying it's a joke game, and then they just keep making it worse. I'm mad, not glad. You people are bad.
Carson, finish the fucking video. It's not gonna make itself.
Sleepy, I don't know if I can. These games are too fucking shit. It's enraging me.
Bro, stop getting distracted by your rage.
Wait, distracting?
Fuck.
I'm gonna kill myself! Here's a rapid fire of a bunch of Asym games I'm not super passionate about, but still haven't played enough to form an opinion on. Don't take these seriously. These are just like really small opinions. I didn't really seriously analyze any of these games. Pwned by 14. It's an okay game with cool as fuck theming. Characters like Jacob are a little bit too OP. Baldy Frenzy. Pretty fun movement-based Asym themed around Baldy. The troublesome game mode is terrible. I hate it. Doomed by Fate. It's pretty cool. Characters aren't super tightly designed, but it's fun enough. Corrupted Crossroads. Neat customization system with cool abilities for both sides. I prefer hard classes, though. Dan Saken. What the actual fuck is this shit? Ew. Reckless. Interesting having more than one killer, but too many classes. Live of Life. It alright. It not me beer. Dimensional Coalescence. It's pretty good, but I don't know what to say about it. So, we've seen a lot of Asym games, and all the ones I pointed out so far have failed in some major way. Why? I think it comes down to one factor. Asym developers don't understand how difficult creating an Asym is. Think about it. You need to make the game balanced to have it be fun, but you also need to make two teams with an unbalanced amount of players. Thinking about the genre this way, you could start to see why games are so consistently bad. On another note, I personally think the flood of Asyms itself is caused by the LMS part of gameplay. This isn't inherently a bad mechanic. In fact, it's really good. I'm guessing a lot of kids just saw how LMSs work and wanted to replicate that feeling with their OCs or characters from a fandom they like. This in turn caused a flood of low-quality Asym, since the main thing these games were made for was usually just because the person making them wanted their favorite characters in the situation. This is actually a fairly large problem with Roblox games, with Roblox developers not really thinking about game design, and instead using games as a form of fan fiction. This is honestly something I would be fine with if the developers making the games were given criticism so they could improve the player experience and become better as game designers. However, this basically never happens, since Roblox players in general just can't give proper criticism. I think it's just because of the general young player base of Roblox, which can't exactly be fixed, but that isn't an excuse for poorly designed games to not receive criticism. Man, I think I got a little too positive. I need to become a little bad. Bad where? Bad under there. Bad under where? Pair! You may have noticed I have yet to call the entire genre of Asyms bad. That's because there is one Asym game that exists that is leagues better than anything else in existence. And that game is Die of Death. Die of Death is objectively the best Asym game, just because of how much effort was put into making the game as fun and balanced as possible. Just look at the killers, diverse kits, distinct skins, actual defined playstyles. You can tell the game was made with care. Speaking of skins, Die of Death has an element that is severely underrated in most multiplayer games, and that is readability. From the killer side, you can easily tell which civilians have what abilities because each killer has a distinct accessory, allowing you to instantly clock which civilians to prioritize at a glance. This is something games like Forsaken fucked up, since the skins for survivors look entirely different on a skin-by-skin basis, requiring you to look at the bottom left to see what the skin is. From the civilian side, all of the killer's attacks are pretty well telegraphed with both distinct sounds and visuals, allowing you to easily come up with a strategy in the little time you have to escape. Die of Death also uses the amazing stamina management system of Forsaken, slightly tweaked to be a little faster, I think. I don't know, it just feels faster because the game is way faster paced. Civilian abilities are also really well balanced due to it basically being RNG what you get each round, so every round feels unique. It also makes it so the killer can't be gained up on by a full team of Sentinels, unless it's the mode where you're supposed to kill the killer with a bunch of guns. I'd be here forever if I listed off everything good about this game in full detail. So here's a quick lightning round. The map design is amazing. The music is super well made and really diverse. The game modes are all fun, even Evil Scary. Fuck you. Evil Scary adds strategy to the game. The unique LMS effects are super fun to play around with. The dash is an actual dash instead of a speed boost. Killjoy has one of the most unique playstyles I've ever seen in an Asym, and I love him. Badware is he's not an actually good snowballer. He's all right. He's probably the best designed one out of everything. And also, he's my husband. Hi, Badware. Ooh. There's only one issue with Die of Death for me, and that's that Harkin doesn't really have a specific playstyle outside of Chaser or Resource Management. This doesn't really impact the game for me, because Harkin's still really fun to play. It just kind of annoys me. Overall, Die of Death is the only Asym from this video that you should try if you've never played an Asym before. It's so good. It's fucking better than Dead by Daylight. Also, Die of Death developers, if you're watching this video, please make this. Please don't ruin the readability with the skin update. I will die if that happens. Yeah, this is a pretty insane video about game design. I sure do hope I don't see anything that triggers my rage in the next 5 seconds.
Hey guys, it's me, Quelver Roblox. I just collabed.
Shut up! Shut the fuck up! I fucking hate you! Oh, wait, I did this bit already, actually.
The Forsaken.